meeting of the Community Services and Public Safety Committee. I am the chair of that committee. Hogan Cunningham is the vice chair. The members are Gerald Dawson, York Glover, and Alice Howard. I see Alice is there. Are any of the other members present?
You have
I'm here, Larry.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we can proceed then. We have 3 people.
Yes. Correct. Quorum, yes.
Okay. Then I would like to call this meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. May I, this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. Item number 4 is the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Alice.
I'll
May I have a
second.
Thank
Second.
you very much. Any discussion? Are there any objections? Any alterations to the agenda? Hearing none and no objections, the agenda is approved. Number 5 is approval of the minutes from August 15th, 2022. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion about the minutes or any corrections to be made? Hearing none, are there any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing no objections, the minutes of the meeting of August 15th are approved. Item number 6 is citizen comments. Do you have any, Brad?
No, sir, I don't have any.
Okay. Since there are no citizens' comments, we will close out item number 6 and move on to the agenda item. Item number 7 is a presentation from the National Alliance of the Mentally Ill. Michelle Casey is there. Colonel Foote, would you handle the introductions, please?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, rest of council. Today I've got Michelle Casey lined up to give a quick presentation on NAMI, and I met Michelle at a Leadership of Hilton Head class, and we talked for a little while, and she had just recently got promoted to the executive director of NAMI for the Low Country. And I said, you know, it'd be a good idea to have you come and do a little small presentation with us at council so that we could get you on the county channel and understand more what NAMI does. For most people that don't know what NAMI is the National Alliance of the Mentally Ill. And although there's a lot of different agencies out there that provide services to the mentally ill, NAMI is a little bit different, as they provide services to the family and caretakers of people with mental illnesses. So they are a supporting role that's very important in the community. I've been working with NAMI of the Low Country for many years at the detention center. We had them helping the families of people that were possibly mentally ill that were incarcerated. So I got to know NAMI very well, and they're a good organization for resources for these families. And I think that just like a lot of other different 501(c)(3)s and other volunteering agencies out there, they've had a really tough go at it during COVID, with a lot of volunteering backing out and not wanting to volunteer anymore. So it's tough to get those volunteers out there to help with this organizations out there. So I kind of wanted to bring this back up to light, that NAMI's out there, that NAMI predominantly works off of volunteers and volunteer basis on how they provide their services. And I'm not going to go into those services because I'm going to allow Michelle to handle those comments and take you through what NAMI of the Low Country does. So without any further ado, I will let Michelle Casey, who's the Executive Director of NAMI of the Low Country take over from here.
Thank you very much, Colonel Foote. And Michelle, may I just take a moment and welcome you to the Community Services and Public Safety Committee meeting, so that you know, in addition to the people who are on the Zoom meeting and in attendance, this is broadcast on the county channel, and it will also be recorded so that in the future, if anyone wants to go in and have a look at this video, they'll be able to do that with regard to your presentation. We've been talking quite a bit about the issues of mental illness in our community lately, tying it in often to homelessness and also to the rise in domestic violence. And we think that it's an important topic. And I'm very happy that you were able to carve some time out today to come over and tell us about your all-volunteer organization, because we're not really sure what we can do to help. But we're anxious to find out what everyone is doing, so that if we can find a role in this and provide some kind of assistance, we'd like to step in and do that. So thank you for coming, and I'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and I am grateful that Phil brought me in on this. And at this time, as he mentioned, I am new to this role, but I'm not new to NAMI. I have been with NAMI for 10 years, and how I was introduced to NAMI, I was a mother who was desperate with nowhere to go after my daughter had her fourth suicide attempt. And so I'd like for you to think of NAMI as much like AA and Al-Anon is for alcohol recovery. That's what we are. We do not have clinicians. We do not have doctors or psychotherapy. What we are is education, support, and empowerment. So we have 14 different programs, but having said that, we're not linear in our approach for the support in the community. So let's talk about, for a second, let me just take you to where we were. NAMI Low Country is an affiliate of a national organization. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we have 600 affiliates across the United States. And we have the national and the state association. I'm also on the board for that. And then our local area. Our local affiliate serves 5 counties, which is Beaufort, Jasper, Hampton, Colleton, and Allendale. It's hard to reach all those communities that are in the rural areas, and it's been difficult since COVID. But having said that, it's a year in now that I've been in this job, in this position. Before that, I was on the board and the president of the board, and this job came about as a result of our executive director, Sarah Lyasoff, who retired after 14 years. So I was kind of green as far as what needed to be done with this organization for the first year. But I have been working very hard to look at what we are as a community and what it is we need. And I feel like there's been a lot of gaps. So that's where we were. This is where we are now. As an organization, we are now starting to get some traction back after COVID. We are training more volunteers and facilitators. Our programs are evidence-based. They're written by doctors. So even though we're not counselors, we are trained by programs that are written by doctors, and they're pretty intensive. We have to go away for a few days to take these programs, then we have to shadow people, and that's how they come about. Do I have screen sharing capability by any chance?
Yes, ma'am, you do.
Yes.
I do. Okay. Well, I'm going to, for the visual people here, I'm going to give them the opportunity to share my screen so you can see the programs. Okay, so can you all see those?
Yes.
Yes, we see 4 items there, ending
Okay,
on family to family. Is that the last?
Yeah, there's actually 14 programs, and I can send this out to your community. I don't want to overload you with too much information because I just want you to grasp the important concepts.
Yeah. If we could bring it up a bit, that might be helpful, Brenna.
Okay, let me bring it up. Here, let me move you over here so I can see what's going on. Okay, I've reduced it a little bit. All right. So we have Connection. Let me just tell you what Connections is. So that's kind of like the people who are living with illness in recovery they oftentimes are looking for opportunities to reboot their life. And one of the biggest issues with mental illness is loneliness. And so for people then to find the traction, because if they've lost their jobs, they've been in the hospital, if they've been hospitalized, or it's taken a while to stabilize, and people haven't understood their illness, they often end up in a social isolation. So Connection is a support group that meets weekly, and that's where people go who have those issues and want to rebuild their lives. Peer-to-peer is the same thing. It's more of an in-depth coaching program for people with illness. And so that is another thing for people living with illness. Our family support group, that is for loved ones like myself. I was involved with that. And the family support groups, we meet on Zoom and in person. So we have a hybrid of those that are happening also in Beaufort County and also through Zoom. The Family to Family program, I'm going to tell you, this program changed my life. This is a very in-depth program. It teaches you how to communicate and to identify the whole process of mental illness, how the system works, where we have to be proactive in advocating for family members. I'm going to tell you, I'll present this when I talk to police officers. If I'd have known about this program 15 years before I was introduced to it, it would have changed a lot of things for me. My introduction to mental illness happened when my husband was sick and had to call the police department, and he ended up in a mental hospital. And the bottom line is, I was given the advice of, oh, well, get everything out of your name. He'll never be the same again. And I said, where do I go to for support? There was no support then. It was 1997. There was no Google. So NAMI's come a long way in promoting these programs and getting the word out. Our Family and Friends is sort of an intro to what Family to Family does, and helps people understand the value of understanding how to talk to somebody and live with somebody who has a mental illness and be helpful rather than hurtful. Because a lot of times when people are desperate and they don't know what to do, it escalates and there's just a lot of gaps. NAMI Basics, that's a program that we teach in the younger generation. We provide daycare for young parents who are looking to try to offset problems that seem to be showing up in younger children. And so we'll go into schools and to libraries, and we also offer that in Spanish with Bases y Fundamentos. Once again, recruiting the facilitators for this and getting them in the training programs, because the training programs have been only happening annually, but NAMI has been adjusting and is now doing Zoom trainings in order to get more facilitators out in the field as quickly as possible. Compartiendo, sorry, my British accent is going to kill my Spanish accent. Compartiendo Esperanza, that's a bilingual program to promote outreach and meaningful engagement in the Latin community. We feel that this is a focus that we want to really expand right now. I'm working with Mental Health America and Coastal Empire to build those alliances to reach that community. FaithNet, that's an outreach program that we put into churches. We are now aiming to put mental health resource centers and teaching clergymen and people in their congregation to have their own resource centers, because that's where people gather, and there's plenty of people there that can help carry that load. Crisis intervention training. This is one of my very favorite programs. We teach this. This is a state-offered program that goes across the state. It's been in Beaufort County 3 times this year. And what we do is we explain to police officers how the experience, we have people there who've had experience with law enforcement of when they've been in crisis, what to do, what not to do, and then also to offer tools to the police officers so that when they're on scene, they know what to do. Now, I want to just elaborate on this particular program, why it's such a passion for me. Because whenever a police officer is showing up on the scene, they have about 4 seconds and 25 feet to assess who is the danger in that situation. And they have to make a decision then, who is the threat, and then remove the threat. And if it's somebody in crisis who is psychotic, there's really not a place that is in between that. A police officer has resources, and it's a lot on them. And that I just taught a class maybe 3 weeks ago, and I said, what could we as a community do to help you to offset the pressures that you're now under? Because calling 911, there are now problems there. I've experienced this myself, even with the crisis teams, crisis mobile units. Unless somebody is going to attempt suicide or is homicidal, those resources are so thin that the gap in the middle doesn't seem to be being addressed. So I asked the police officers what would work. What could we help them with? And they said one of the things that has been really helpful with law enforcement is what Bluffton Police Department has done with Hannah Anderson, which is a mental health advocate who has taken off a lot of the stress of the police officers, that she comes to the scene, she does a lot of the follow-up, and it then relieves the stress on the manpower that you have working in the field. So I think to get more people in those roles throughout the counties would be ideal, particularly in Beaufort as the need is growing. Also, with the law enforcement, if somebody is dangerous and in a psychotic episode with mental illness, I had a case where I called over at the Beaufort County Jail, and I talked to Colonel Grant, and I said, what can we do to help? She said, well, there are a lot of gaps that were missed before we got here, but if somebody is in crisis and they become violent, there's not a place for them to go. And the thing is once they're incarcerated, there isn't a whole lot anybody can do to advocate and help move people from that situation until a bed becomes available that has the security to house those people. So those people can be medically in crisis mentally, really need mental health attention rather than incarceration. So that's another gap that I've identified in my year here that we need to address. And I'd like to partner with the county on how we can put education into the prison systems so that family members know how to respond before people get to that crisis moment. Another very invaluable program that we have is something called Ending the Silence. This is where we'll take somebody who's been in the school, who is a young person who has had a mental health problem, and then we have a facilitator, and we do in-school presentations and teach middle and high school students how to recognize when their peer is in trouble. They're more likely to tell their friends when there's a problem than they will their parents or a teacher. And what we do is we help them identify who those safe people are when there's a problem that seems to be occurring. One of our other programs is In Our Own Voice. This is a public education presentation. This is where people who have been through the mental health system, have recovered, go into the hospitals and offer hope to those who have been recently hospitalized and connect them to our organization. We need more people to do that. It was difficult to do that during COVID, but now the doors are open and we're back online with that. NAMI Homefront is basically like family to family, and that helps family members support our military veterans who have served and are suffering from a mental illness or trauma or post-traumatic stress syndrome. And all of these programs we offer for free. What has been amazing with NAMI as far as where we are now and where we're going, we're becoming more advanced. And if we have just a minute, I've got a short little video I'd like to show you, if it'll allow me. I'll put that up here and see if I can get this to you. I'd like for you to see this because this came from National, and it sort of goes over everything that I have said and is really very informative as far as what we're doing on a national level and legislatively. Can you all see that?
You can.
Can you hear it?
No.
Okay.
Oh, no.
You can't hear it? Oftentimes.
Moving, but no sound yet.
Okay. Let me see if it'll let me give you sound. Oftentimes that's the tricky thing with these videos. Well, I won't take up time. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll send that link out to you, to your group, so that you can watch it in the privacy of your own schedule, and then it's well worth watching. But there's one thing that I will share with you that is on the bottom of the video that one of the things NAMI has done. Let me stop my share. This is the most fantastic way to get the message and help instantly to a 15-year-old. So if you have an iPhone, you can simply do this. Hey Siri, I'm depressed. Oh, I had my ringer on. Hey Siri, I'm depressed.
I'm sorry to hear that. Talking to someone might help. If you'd like, I can help you call a friend or family member, or you can find help online at NAMI.org.
Wow.
That's a great tool that's just come out. And the other thing that we've done with NAMI is also we have really pushed legislatively to get the 988 number, which now that's our role. How we can help the community is the manpower and the funding is short for tending to psychiatric appointments. I'm seeing a huge gap where people who want help, need help, are having problems accessing a psychiatrist. We need more psychiatrists in the Department of Mental Health. The Department of Mental Health serves 5 counties like we do. In Beaufort County alone, 5 counties, and they have 2 working psychiatrists that are able to prescribe medicines and a clinical director. And they're doing very well with what they have done. We've partnered with the Department of Mental Health, and so as they have people that are going through their system, we are then helping with the after support, so that when they come out of the Department of Mental Health, we can help with that. I'm seeing huge gaps with if we can find a way to help with the gaps in cost of medicines, because when people come out of the hospital, they have about 10 days to get an appointment. They go through a counselor, then that's the screening, then another counseling appointment, and then they can see a doctor. Sometimes that can take up to 6 weeks. I'm going to tell you why this is really important. You know this. We have almost 200,000 people in Beaufort County alone. The statistics say 1 in 5 have a mental health issue. So I'm not a mathematician, but I believe that's about 40,000 people. And it's growing. Those are the reported numbers. So if you've got 40,000 people that have a mental health issue, let's say half of them have enough insurance or have support at home that they can get the care that they need. That leaves 20,000. Maybe some people maybe they're self-medicating or causing problems or domestic violence. Who knows? All I can tell you that even if you only had 5,000 people in Beaufort County alone, is 2 or 3 psychiatrists, prescribing psychiatrists, enough to carry that load that's growing? What would it mean for us if we could get ahead of it and start doing and working more on prevention, which is what NAMI's role is going to be, and helping educate people before they get to those crisis moments? What would it mean if NAMI Low Country had the manpower, and as we get our name out there, to get people more involved? So how are we doing that? What are we doing? We have our big NAMI walk this weekend. We had 200 participants come out to the beach and come and participate. But how many of you in this group heard of NAMI and knew what we did? So that's the challenge. How can you partner with us? Get the word out. How can we help you? We'll be the support that's not covered. And that's all I have to offer to you today. So thank you for your time.
Well, that was quite a lot. Thank you. And all very important. I have some questions I'd like to focus in on, but I'll hold those until I hear from anyone else who might have a comment, an observation, or a question. Are there any out there who wish to answer, say anything, ask a question?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I would, if you don't mind,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, no, go right ahead.
Yeah, Ms. Michelle, I can't think of your last name here, Casey.
Casey.
Yes, ma'am. I was very intrigued by the crisis intervention training that you're offering. was it receptive of law enforcement when you provided those training? And do you do any follow-up to see whether some of the intervention is being carried out at this time? And then the last question I have on that is, should the law enforcement actually have a physical person on staff to go out on cases like that or on calls, or should that be a separate entity altogether to assist them on the scene when they get there? Because like you said earlier, they only have a short window of opportunity to respond, and we want it to be appropriate. And a lot of times, law enforcement, they do a good job of law enforcement, but I don't know whether they really do as well a job with assessing mental illness. That's my question. Thanks.
Well, thank you for those questions, and there are about 4 of those, so I'll do it just as fast as I can. And probably about the 100 and something officers that I've talked to over this past year doing crisis intervention training. The sheet that I just went through that I showed you, an officer said to me, "I'll be handing these things out like Skittles," because he didn't even know we existed. And so what I recommended was that sheet is printed and posted in all the precincts, and talking with the police chief. As far as does the mental health advocate work, I can tell you that the Bluffton Police Department seem to be having a working model. I think that should be something to explore with all law enforcement areas, because they seem to be having great success there. Hannah Anderson has been featured in local articles of late, so if you want to read up on that. But I think that that's definitely worth exploring. I can't speak to that on what their success level is and what their metrics are, but I can tell you that the response that I'm getting with crisis intervention with the law enforcement, they learn things, but they said, "We need tools. What tools can I?" And that's when I said to them, "I'm not going to stand here and tell you how to that you're not treating people with mental illness right, because I feel like the officers that I've encountered are compassionate and caring and frustrated that they're not getting the support that they need on the front lines. And I think that NAMI can help with the education, and I think the county could help by offering them support with somebody that just deals with a mental health side of it. Hannah Anderson, who is working with Bluffton Police Department, she will go out in a crisis situation, and then she does the follow-up to check and direct people to the proper resources, us being one of them.
Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, I have a couple. How many volunteers do you have in the 5-county area?
Right now, probably about 25.
Okay. Are you a registered 501c3 by any chance?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Where do you get your funding to operate here? In other words, do you have any grants coming in that help you?
I have applied with the Beaufort Fund, and the person that's done this before me has really built up quite some strong relationships with other nonprofits. We've gotten some from the Bargain Box and local nonprofits, the Church Mouse and things like that. Some of the local communities like Palmetto Cares, Wexford, Long Cove, we write grants to those. And we were able to get some assistance after COVID because we were really affected deeply by COVID. Mm-hmm. And so the town of Bluffton gave us a grant this year of $12,000.
I don't know if you've applied under our community services grant program with the county. If you haven't, we will be sure to get you the information so that in the next cycle, you will be able to apply for that, because there is an ongoing program within the county to provide support to community organizations like yours.
Yeah, I did apply for that.
Okay. The mental health advocate is probably someone who should be assigned to the sheriff's department, and we will be happy to talk to him on your behalf if you haven't, and try and establish a point of contact with you, with them, so you can talk to them further about that. With regard to the psychiatrist, tomorrow, coincidentally, the Beaufort County Legislative Delegation is having a meeting. And there's an opportunity at the end of that meeting to have citizen comments. And I think that would be an appropriate place to ask for assistance there with regard to funding for those positions, because apparently all of our elected representatives who work in Columbia will be in the room. And you may find a nice audience. So before you leave there, where are you? Are you at our building? Or are you on Zoom? You're on Zoom.
I'm on Zoom.
Okay. We will get to you the information on where that meeting is tomorrow and when. It's open to the public, and there's comments available at the end. I don't know if it's a Zoom meeting, although I know it is on the county channel if you can't make it there. But I think that would be an appropriate place to go to ask for that kind of assistance. With regard to getting the word out, our very excellent PIO officer will be filing a report soon with regard to the presentation that you made here today, covering all of the things that you covered and perhaps even incorporating, with your permission, one of the slides that you used to show the kind of work that you're doing, so we can spread the word for you through our email contact list, which has numerous people on it and who look forward to getting these types of announcements. I think I've pretty much covered, with regard to the incarceration education, I think that Colonel Foote and Colonel Grant would be the people to deal with that for you, for an opportunity to talk to family members of people who are incarcerated. And I don't know how that would work out or if it's even possible. But I think you have the access to Colonel Foote and to Colonel Grant, and that may be the appropriate place for you to pursue that. So I've given you quite a bit to do here today.
I'm fine.
Quite a few responsibilities to follow up on, and we will help you any way we can, because we recognize how important it is, the work that you're doing, and how significant the problem is. To hear 1 in 5 is a staggering number. Considering 40,000 or even half that number or a quarter of that number of people who are in distress. So we applaud you for what you're doing, and we hope we can spread the word. And we will start with a PIO announcement, and then we will try and we will get the sheriff. We will find a point of contact for you with the sheriff's department about talking about a mental health advocate, perhaps on their staff. He's not shy about asking for money to fill those positions once he is convinced that it's appropriate. And I'm pretty sure that you can convince him once you have the access. So thanks very much for coming. Does anyone else have any follow-up for Michelle before she says adios? No, not hearing any. Okay, thanks, Michelle. We really appreciate. Oh, yeah.
I just want to tell you that Philip Foote reached out to me, Colonel Foote. I just want to thank him for the opportunity. He is equally as passionate about putting some action together here. So thank you so much.
He is passionate about it, and we appreciate that trait in him. He's passionate about a lot of things. It's tough to keep them in order sometimes, but it's at the top of his list.
Okay, thank you. Well, he's the one that got me here, so thank you so much to him.
Okay,
all right, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, the next item, I think, Colonel Foote, is yours again. Item number 8, recommending approval of a contract for a kitchen floor replacement at the detention center.
Yes, sir. We put that out for an RFP, and we have selected a company named Surface Systems out of Greer, South Carolina. They're going to come in and put down some type of an epoxy flooring in our kitchen, a commercialized epoxy flooring in our kitchen, to make sure that it's sanitary in there. It's very hard right now with what we have, which are the old quarry tile with grout in the middle of those quarry tiles, and you know how that stuff gets after a while. They've been there since the building was built, so it's time to replace that. And we're asking to do a contract with Surface Systems at a cost of $97,765.50.
Okay, so we will ask now for a motion to move that forward to. Does it have to go to full council, or can it come out of committee, Phil?
No, sir. We'll be done here.
Okay, so then we will, I'll seek a motion to approve that and a second, and then have some discussion and a vote. May I have a motion to approve the request for $97,765?
So moved.
Thank you. And second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that matter? Well, I would move this forward for approval without objection. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, this motion shall carry, and Phil, the matter has been approved. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 9. Eric, are you anywhere in the room? Oh, yeah, I see you. This is a discussion of an ordinance to provide maintenance work on private roads. And this was referred back to this committee for further study, and the report back at the last meeting of this calendar year in December. And as we were discussing this at the agenda meeting, it became apparent that there were other issues that were pending with regard to this, and other areas where progress had been made and a group assembled to address this specifically. So I'd ask the county administrator to just give us a briefing on that situation, and then I'll follow up with a recommendation after that. Thank you, Eric.
Yes, sir. We, as a result of the action council meeting, we have scheduled a meeting with the appropriate team members for this coming Thursday to look at this matter in more detail, to see what options we can come up with that would address the council's concerns. So that meeting will be held Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, I saw the list. I saw the invitation to that Zoom meeting. It's a great many people that are coming to have some input there. And I also see the current ordinance that exists with regard to one-time maintenance requests on private roads. And I think that ordinance and the language in it doesn't necessarily contradict what's going to be happening, but it lays out a program and a protocol as to how this should be accomplished, and really has to do with the fact that we're dealing with private property, and the property owners, all of them have a right to allow us onto the property. And then if we do that kind of work, there may be a nominal fee that has to be charged, a special tax district that can be created for whatever the cost is. And I'm sure that will be part of your discussions on Thursday. I've suggested, after I had a talk with Craig Gordon, who you referred me to, who's very knowledgeable about this, that he be invited to this discussion so that he can tell everyone what he told me, because I found his information to be extremely informative, and it pretty much conforms with the language of this ordinance as it currently exists with regard to gaining access, and then who shall absorb the costs for the one-time maintenance. So if you could arrange to have him invited, that would be, I think, appropriate for everyone to hear from him.
We've already taken care of that issue.
Okay.
And we also,
well, I was going to say, based upon the fact that you're convening this meeting on Thursday, I would like to wait for the recommendations to come out of your meeting on Thursday and put this back on the agenda for the community services meeting on the first Monday of November, so that we can provide a course of action and stay on schedule to make a final report in December at the last county council meeting of the calendar year. And that your meeting on Thursday really doesn't interfere with the schedule, because by the time you have finished analyzing all of the discussion and making a set of recommendations, we'll be able to consider all that at the first meeting of community services in November. If you find that to be satisfactory, that's what I'd like to see happen here today.
that sounds good. That's what we'll do. And just on the first presentation, I just want to let you know that we have provided the meeting information for the delegation meeting tomorrow to Miss Casey.
I'd like her to go over there and ask for something, and see if she can generate some interest there, because there's a lot of chatter in Columbia about this problem and this issue. And here's someone who can step right in with some suggestions on how perhaps we could address it immediately, which would really, for her purposes, increase the staff of the psychiatrists on hand to have a more realistic number of people dealing with the 5-county area, since we only seem to have 3.
Right.
dealing with 5 counties. So thanks for doing that. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
the county calendar says that meeting is Thursday. Is it incorrect, that legislative
correct.
delegation?
It is Thursday. Oh,
Okay.
wait a minute. You mean with the county delegates?
Right.
Well, I thought,
I just,
yeah, well, there's so many meetings being announced every day with this campaign season. Sometimes they all run together for me. If it is Thursday, we should let her know that I was mistaken with the Wednesday selection. And this will give her a little more time to get organized, which is a good thing.
I didn't know. She'll know.
We're going to send her the details.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, do you need a motion to move this, postpone this to the next community service meeting?
I'll be happy to take one, and let's do that. We're going to.
I will make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Can I have a second on moving it to the next meeting?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on that? The motion is to move it to the next meeting of Community Services after the Thursday meeting of the discussion group, and I will entertain that motion without objection. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion is approved, and we will move this to the next meeting. Thank you, Logan. I appreciate that. Item number 10 is to recommend approval of a resolution approving the Beaufort County Notice of Funding Opportunity, number 1, plan created for the purpose of crafting the Beaufort County Plan to submit to the South Carolina Opiate Relief Fund Board. Is Steve Donaldson with us today?
Present.
Well, hello, Steve. Always nice to see you.
Hello.
I hope that I'm sure you're going to give us all the information we need for item number 10 and actually item number 11. No, sorry, just item number 10 with regard to recommending approval of a resolution. So the floor is yours, Steve. Thanks for coming.
Good afternoon. And given the subject matter today, I should note that today is World Mental Health Day. So it's an appropriate day to be presenting because substance use disorders also follow in that path. So the resolution is basically asking if for approval of the resolution for us to put opiate abatement dollars out to the community to help us with the fight against opiate addiction and those related consequences. So as everyone is aware of, the South Carolina Opiate Relief Fund is active, and money is going to be available to Beaufort County when the portal is opened up for us to submit an application. Just to note, this is probably going to happen 3 to 4 times annually rather than just once. So it's a nice way for us to regroup, make our plan, and submit whatever we plan to do in Beaufort County. And I must note that it is not discretionary on the board's part to look at our plan and to nitpick it apart and to deny or not. All we have to do with them is say this is what we plan to do, and as long as it's in the approved core strategies and approved uses, they just simply provide us with a check within 45 days of receipt of that plan. What I'm suggesting is, because it takes a long time for us to get the information we need as a community to put together our plan, is to allow us to put out a notice of funding opportunity so other sectors who are in it with us to fight this crisis, that they let us know what their ideas are, and that we, in a very objective way, in a non-biased way, score those applications and make funding determinations, and at that point, put our plan together on the SCORE portal when the opportunity presents itself, and then get those funds to the community after we get those funds.
Okay, Steve, let me ask you a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
What's the amount of money you expect to receive with this grant from the settlement on the opiate issue?
Well, the big Johnson & Johnson settlement, the biggest pop of all in all of 17 years is expected between now and December 31st. And for Beaufort County, that's $1,038,000 approximately. That doesn't take in consideration any interest, so I can't give an exact number.
Is that the total amount we'll get through calendar year 23, or is there more coming?
No, actually, there's about $412,000 in the bank right now in Columbia, and then there'll be that $1 million pop, and then in July again, there's expected to be around another $200,000.
Okay, great. So then you will be putting out a request to people in the community who are in this business to tell you how they will use the funds that are available. And you will allow them to apply with limits, I suppose, on how much they can ask for, or within a tier of limits as to what they can ask for. Is that right?
Tier of limits is correct.
Okay. Can you tell us just the maximum amount people can apply for?
So there's a limited number of awards for $25,000 for 2 years, not to exceed $25,000 in each year, $50,000 for 2 years, or a total of $100,000, and $100,000 a year for 2 years, or $200,000.
Okay. And all of that will come from the money that you get. I mean, you don't have to spend it all in any period of time. You can just hold on to it and use it as you need it.
Pretty much, except
Okay.
I should say that any amount of money that we apply for from the SCORF website or through the SCORF website must be spent within 3 years, or it needs to essentially roll back in and then be made available for discretionary funding and not governmental funding.
Yeah, I don't think you'll have an issue with that time frame. I'm sure you don't think you'll have an issue either. Okay, so are there any questions for Steve with regard to the resolution he's requesting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Let me make sure I understand as well. I was under the impression that this opioid funds was probably in the neighborhood of $20 million that would come to Beaufort County. And
Yes, sir, over the course of 17 years.
okay, so this is like the first set of funding?
Yes, sir.
But over time, you're looking at roughly about $20 million over a period of time.
If not more.
Give or take a,
For example, Mellencroft is just settling, and we don't know what the monies is going to be from them. Purdue Pharma has not settled yet. I see the fund just growing.
Okay. Then that leads to the question it's in the back of my mind. I am a person that believe in solutions and not treating symptoms. So where are you and the committee in making sure that whatever goes out, there is some type of end result and far as solution is concerned? It may not be a solution. It may be all treatment, but and I didn't kind of, in some areas I see it in your report, but I would just want to know from you, where are you or the committee in coming down to a solution of some sort? For an example, is it possible that funding could be for a treatment facility of some sort? A lot of mental health recipients are also opioid addiction.
That is correct. Yes, that is correct, sir. And I certainly appreciate your concerns. Anybody with discretionary dollars, that's where 1/3 of the money that SCORF Board's going to give out has very rigid performance standards that they have to set up in their plan. We, as a government entity, our performance measures are not that rigid. Our application is going to be about this big, whereas the discretionary people's is going to be about that big. So in our NOFO, we're actually asking for performance measures so that we know how the money's being spent. And it's not necessarily just for treatment. It could be for law enforcement, research, training, leadership, neonatal abstinence type interventions. It's a very wide array of different types of programs that can be created with these monies. Everything in the Exhibit C, which is in the South Carolina handbook for the use of or core strategies and approved uses, it details what those types of things could be. In our NOFO, we simply cut and pasted exactly what was there. It's exactly what's coming out of Columbia to say, all this is available for the community to let us know for what exactly you're experiencing, what it is you have as a solution, and what your performance measures are. And so I believe that we're being good stewards of this money to try to make sure it's not just parked into just treatment, because there's many other places in the community that could use this money to make a positive impact.
Good. Last question. The committee itself, your committee is a local committee, right?
I'm on the SCORF board for the state, but locally, it's just Fred, Audra, and me. But we don't want to make those decisions by ourselves, so we're looking for other people that have actually professional know-how to objectively and non-biasedly help us to make decisions, but also disclose any conflicts of interest up front.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, York and Steve, just a quick comment. Based on the things I know and have done in the past, addressing this is kind of like a three-legged stool. One leg is law enforcement, but we all have come to realize over the years you cannot arrest your way out of this problem, but it is a component that is necessary. Education and prevention is another leg of that stool, and that probably will be something that is considered here as we go forward. And then the last is treatment and rehabilitation, which is something that Beaufort County specializes in under the leadership of Steve and does it very well. So I think the absence of any one of those legs causes that stool to be very rickety. So law enforcement, education and prevention, treatment and rehabilitation, and all the things that you can fit under those categories, I think will probably be considered as we receive this money over the next 17 years and apply it for the good in our community. So Steve, I thank you for all the work you always do in this arena that you do so well. And do we have to send this forward because of the amount to the full council?
Yes.
Excuse me?
I'm told yes.
Okay, good. So then, are there any other questions or comments or observations for Steve Donaldson while he's there? Okay, hearing none, I would like a motion to recommend approval of this resolution and forward it to the full council for their consideration.
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion on this matter before the vote? In seeking approval for this motion to send this request forward to the full council, I would pass that motion without objection. Are there any objections to this? Hearing none, this motion shall carry, and we will forward this to the council for their consideration at the next meeting. Thank you very much. And thank you, Steve, for coming in and spending your time with us today and giving us the information we needed to make an informed decision. Thank you very much. Number 11 is recommending approval of a resolution to approve the recommendations to award fiscal year 23 community services grants in the amount of $398,000 to the community services organizations that have qualified for and been granted approval to receive those funds. Something's happened on my screen. Who will be handling this?
Fred Lida.
Oh, hi, Fred. Go right ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Everything's either in my eyes or my screen is very blurry. I couldn't make out who it was. Thanks, Fred.
All right. Thank you very much. Can we get the presentation pulled up? Good afternoon, members of council, folks at home. My name is Fred Lida. I'm the Human Services Director for Beaufort County. And as soon as we get our PowerPoint, I'll be able to walk you through this process.
Give me just a second. It's part of the backup materials. I'll have to pull that up.
While we're waiting, I'll just kind of go through some of the history that we talk about in the early days, or early parts of the presentation anyway. And that is basically that this process has been going on for about 10 years. It was around 2012, I think, that we implemented the grants process as a way to fairly and equitably distribute funds across the nonprofit community that works in the human services arena. We wanted a way that was fair, but also didn't result in all the members of council getting approached for funding individually by different groups in the community. So this makes it a little easier way to go about. Are we any closer?
Yes, sir. I apologize for that.
Can you open that to the, there we go. Okay. Get right. Where am I aiming this?
You just have to tell me because it's not in the
Advance.
yeah.
Next slide.
I'll try to keep up with you.
All right, great. And one more. Okay. One more slide. There we go. So you can see there the purpose of what we're doing, the eligibility. Members of the Human Services Alliance, we have about 120 agencies that are members of the Alliance. They are eligible if they are a 501c3 to apply for the funds, and we use a panel of independent representatives in the community to review the applications. It's a competitive process. Next slide. We focus primarily on health, wellness, education, empowerment, family services, and victim advocacy. This year, we received 39 applications. The number of applications is going up every year, and a total of a little over $1 million were asked for. Next slide. We don't show trends from year to year because the organizations are different and the programs that they offer are different, so we would be comparing apples to oranges. So we look at each individual application in light of what's going on in the community as opposed to what everybody else has applied for. Next slide. There are 3 slides here that I'm going to show you that have the breakdown of the recommendations from the panel on which organizations' applications should be funded and the amounts that they're recommending. I'm happy to answer any questions about the individual agencies that you have. I don't have knowledge of the individual proposals. I could get that information, but I typically don't review them so that I can keep that myself separated from those parts of the decision-making process. Next slide.
Yeah, page, yeah, thanks. Okay.
I'm sorry?
Nothing, I'm good. I was going to say, I think we can go to page 2, and it's there, so thank you.
Yep. So here I wanted to just, I'm not going to go through all these. I'll just highlight a couple of key ones that I think are significant. One of the newest that we received is Mercyme Sober Living. Steve's going to be able to talk to you about this, I'm sure, in the future, but it's the only place we have that is offering medication-assisted treatment for people with substance use disorders. So we wanted to focus on supporting them. Next slide.
Okay.
And on this one, I wanted to point out the Operation Patriots Forward operating base, OPFOB, is located out in Ridgeland, but it's a new program that's supporting veterans. One of our Together for Beaufort County initiatives is the Military and Veteran Services Alliance, MAVSA. OPFOB is a member of that group and has really, really made a powerful presence in the community. They have some great stuff going on there. It's basically an opportunity for veterans who are dealing with PTSD not to go and talk about the PTSD, but to go out and sit around a campfire, go riding, shoot skeet, do things with other veterans so that they can have an opportunity to kind of work through the issues that they're struggling with, and to support trauma-induced issues that have happened to them in their careers. So rather than having that trauma lead to depression and eventually suicide, we're hoping that we can head that off by offering these kinds of services.
Could you tell me just what Together for Beaufort County is?
I'm sorry?
Together for Beaufort County?
Yes. So
I can make out what the others do, so to speak, but I don't with this one.
Sure. So that's us. The Human Services Alliance is the network of 120 organizations, and we've organized ourselves into work groups called Together for Beaufort County. We have about, it changes from time to time, but right now we have about a dozen or a little more than that work groups, each working on a different area of need in our community. We have groups that are working on everything from prenatal care, making sure that babies are born healthy, all the way to senior citizens and what are we going to do when the silver tsunami hits and we don't have anywhere near the bed space that we're going to need for the population that gets older. So we've got a number of groups working on a wide range of topics. Children getting ready for school, adults who don't have medical insurance, homelessness, mental health issues. They're all part of the work that we do. We work with NAMI, as you heard earlier, and as you'll notice on this screen, the previous screen, NAMI was one of the organizations that we funded. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, Fred. And thank you to everyone on the committee, everyone who's doing all this work every year. I know it's not easy to go through the process, and it takes quite a bit of time, a lot of energy to do that. And we expect it, of course, to be done every fall, and you've never failed us. So thank you very much to you and to everyone else who participates in this. And I know that there'll be interest at the full council, and this will, of course, have to go there for their approval. And I think they'll look forward to seeing the list, and I'm sure there'll be more questions that night that it's presented. So I'll look forward to seeing you there again so that you'll be able to talk to the full council about this. Are there any questions or observations or comments for Fred while he's here at the Community Services Committee?
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. Can you tell us what Under One Roof is?
Sure. Under One Roof is one of my favorite nonprofits that we have. Of all the organizations in the community that help people who are trying to restore and repair their homes, most of them, in fact, I don't know of any that don't, require that it be a stick-built and that you own it. Under One Roof doesn't.
Oh, okay.
So we formed him specifically. He typically targets senior citizens, but he'll work on mobile homes. He'll work on whatever is needed to. He won't do roofs because most of what he does is done by volunteers, and insurance is not going to let you put a volunteer on top of a roof. But he does home repairs and focuses on seniors that are in need.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a motion that we approve the grant program recommendations.
Thank you very much. York, may I have a second?
I'll second, Steve.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll move this along for approval. May I approve it without objection? Hearing no objections, this matter will be approved for forwarding to the full council for their consideration at the next meeting. Thank you very much. Fred, thanks once again for coming in. We'll look forward to seeing you again, where perhaps there'll be some more questions from the other people who will be at the council meeting with regard to some of the organizations. Thanks, Fred.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Alice, we're 1 minute over.
Okay.
Promised an hour. So if there's no further business for this committee, and hearing no one cry out for attention, I will adjourn this meeting, and we'll take a brief recess, and then Natural Resources will step up. How long do you need, Alice? 5 minutes?
5 minutes. Thank you.
Guys, chat, switch over.